because the rules of provincial list committees across all the provinces.
Thank you very much. Don't worry. It happens to all of us. So the introduction reads as follows, colleagues. In preparation for the forthcoming local government elections in 2026, the Electoral Committee revised the rules and guidelines for candidate selection process and presented these to the National Executive Committee. The National Executive Committee of the ANC has approved the rules and guidelines for the 2026 candidate selection process and mandated the Electoral Committee to communicate these to all members and supporters of the ANC as well as the public. The NEC reviewed and approved these rules and guidelines in its quest for rebuilding, strengthening and renewal of the ANC structures, especially branches, to ensure a credible and inclusive candidate selection process for the 2026 local government elections. Rules were strengthened and improved to ensure that all powers and duties of branches, including all ANC members as enshrined in the ANC Constitution, are fully restored and respected to ensure that we have political programs which are developed and implemented by branches with supervision from higher constitutional structures of the ANC.
It is the NEC's clarion call that all branches of the ANC must participate in the candidate selection process, because this becomes a litmus test of the existence and capacity of the ANC in each region, province, and ultimately at national level. The review process enabled the ANC to tighten its local government candidate selection processes to ensure that we field the best candidates for the 2026 local government elections. The revised rules are therefore aimed at achieving a fundamental improvement on the capacity of our councillors to provide strategic direction and oversight to municipalities. The rules have therefore been crafted to deliberately achieve the desired balance of representativity and the skill set to drive the ANC's programs and policies. The 2026 candidate selection processes the 2026 candidate selection processes are primarily about selecting the best possible candidates to occupy councillor, mayoral, speakers, chief whips, and mayoral committee positions, who are able to play the executive role required to drive the agenda of the developmental state at a local level. Then under Section 2, which is the selection criteria, the minimum requirement to qualify is that candidates must possess a matric qualification and or have the capacity, experience, education, or expertise that will enable them to make a constructive contribution within the municipal council. The requirement of a matric qualification may be waived by the Electoral Committee under exceptional circumstances. All candidates must have personally or virtually attended and completed the 4 OR Tambo School of Leadership modules before being registered with the IEC. And the courses, the modules are as follows. 1, the history of the ANC. 2, building an organization. 3, understanding government. 4, local economic development and sustainable development. All candidates must be members of the ANC in good standing at the time of nomination to the Independent Electoral Commission. Candidates must possess a proven track record of commitment to and involvement in the democratic movement and or government. Have no criminal record or criminal charges brought by the NPA. This, of course, excludes political-related crimes committed before April 1994. Private prosecutions are excluded unless these result in criminal convictions by the courts of law. No candidate shall be eligible for nomination if he or she has been found guilty by the disciplinary committee for contravening the ANC Code of Conduct and had their membership suspended for any period in the last 10 years. This rule applies also where a member is awaiting the outcome of a disciplinary hearing or appeal. No candidate shall be eligible if he or she is temporarily suspended pending the outcome of a court case or disciplinary hearing. No candidate shall be eligible for nomination if his or her case has been finalized by the Integrity Commission and the NEC has approved and implemented the Integrity Commission's recommendation for a suspension of membership or stepping aside from leadership or public office. Those who are already public representatives or members of government executives must achieve satisfactorily in their performance review. All candidates must agree to vetting of criminal records and qualifications and make financial and other interest declarations before final nomination. Candidates must agree to lifestyle audit or other investigation to be conducted by a reputable accounting and law firms if ordered by the Provincial List Committee or the Electoral Committee. Candidates must agree to accept organizational decisions and abide by the ANC and electoral codes of conduct. Candidates must agree to sign the deployment contracts which bind them to be loyal to the decisions of the ANC, including the redeployment and recall as the circumstances such as performance or lack thereof may dictate from time to time. Section 3 deals with balancing the lists. The ANC lists must deliver the diversity of required skills, experience, and capacity. They must be representative of all national groups considering municipal demographics. The 3 district lists should contain a fair geographical spread throughout each region. The lists must also reflect the liberation movement character, including ANC members in alliance and key sectors of society. The list must also achieve 50% or more representation of women in line with Rule 6 of the ANC Constitution, with every second candidate a female throughout the list. It must reflect a mix of youth and age, at least 30% and 10% of each list comprised of the youth between the ages of 25 and 35 and the ages of 36 to 40, respectively. Should there be exceptional circumstances requiring the nomination of a candidate who is less than 25 years old, the branch shall submit motivation for consideration by the PLC. It must include people from different sectors, people who are living with disabilities, and members of the LGBTQIA+ community. For continuity and government experience, at least 70% of candidates must have previous experience in any sphere of government as successful and effective public representatives, members of the executive, or as officials employed in government any time in the last 31 years. This does not, of course, mean that we retain 70% of current councillors. It means casting the net as widely as possible to find all the best talent we have deployed over the years in all parts of government. It must achieve 50% candidates with the expertise we need, for example, qualifications or experience in priority areas of economic development, rural or social development, safety and security, infrastructure development, public finance, law, international relations, etc. And Section 4 deals with rules for campaigns by candidates. Candidates may campaign for support during the week before the BGM and community meetings. Candidates and their supporters may do door-to-door work and phone canvassing, also hold sectoral and public or house meetings. Candidates may be interviewed on radio and use free social media. Candidates and their supporters are not allowed to conduct negative campaigns against other comrades, and doing so shall result in disqualification from the list process. To ensure that money plays no role in the candidate selection process, candidates and their supporters may not produce T-shirts, media, branding of any object, banners, pamphlets, or posters, and so on. They may not engage in any campaign that relies on donations or spending own money, with the exception of paying for meeting venues. Candidates may not pay any member or supporter to campaign for them. Candidates found using money or dispensing patronage to buy votes will be disqualified from the candidate selection process and expelled from the ANC following internal disciplinary measures. Candidates who engage in factional activities, disruption of community meetings and BGMs, or other ANC meetings and programs shall be immediately disqualified by the Electoral Committee upon assessment of available evidence. The next section explains the Electoral Committee and its structures. The Electoral Committee was appointed by the National Executive Committee in 2020 and therefore accounts directly to the National Executive Committee. The Electoral Committee proposes rules to the National Executive Committee, oversees the process, and makes final decisions regarding all disputes and appeals. The Electoral Committee does not get directly involved in nomination process, but provides oversight and ensures compliance with the rules approved by the National Executive Committee. The Electoral Committee includes members of the leagues and alliance. Members of the Electoral Committee are not allowed to stand for nomination as public representatives or other elected positions in the ANC. The Electoral Committee must be comprised of members committed to unity and renewal, who do not support factions, and with a track record of integrity and service, and a good understanding of what is required of public representatives and leaders of the ANC. The Secretary of the Electoral Committee manages the implementation and coordination of the process and liaison with ANC structures, the provincial list committees, and the agency appointed by the Electoral Committee. The Electoral Committee, in consultation with the Provincial Executive Committee, shall recommend the appointment of the provincial list committees for ratification by the National Executive Committee. The Electoral Committee is pleased to announce that the NEC has approved all the provincial list committees. So, the provincial list committees, starting with Limpopo, and here I will only give you the name of the chair of the PLC, and of course, you will be in possession of the electronic version of the statement, and so you'll find the rest of the names there, just to save you from boredom, because I can bore you to death by giving you the details of each member of the PLC. So we start with Limpopo, and the chair of the PLC is Khoshi Sitlamurago Tobejani, who holds a Bachelor of Arts, Law and Administration. He's a former president of Contralesa, a member of Parliament, and a member of the provincial legislature, and a member of the House of Traditional Leaders. The Eastern Cape, the chair is Dr. Lutando Jack. He holds a PhD in education qualification. He's a former deputy VC and dean of students at the Nelson Mandela University. And the Northern Cape, the chair is Dr. Lebogang Muremedi. He holds a PhD qualification in land restitution and mining. He's head of MEC office, has been the assistant director, manager, and tutor lecturer. The Northwest Province, the chair is Dr. Mangezi Tlape. She holds a PhD qualification in economics and management. She's a former MP and whip, MEC, MPL, PEC, PWC, and REC and RWC member. The next province is the Free State. The chair is Joyce Mtembu. She holds a BCom qualification in supply chain management. She's a former municipal manager, chair of Tourism Authority, and led the office of the tourism. Has been a community liaison officer as well. The next is Gauteng Province. The chair is Mali Mokwena, holds an honors degree in labor relations. He's a former MMC, PR counselor, and administrator. The Mpumalanga Province, the chair is Jack Rapatsa, holds a personnel and training management diploma. The former executive mayor and PLC member. And the next is KwaZulu-Natal. The chair is Sipho Magwaza. holds a qualification in D-level intelligence studies, is the chair of the ANC Provincial Integrity Commission, former project administrator and South African National Defence Force section head in KwaZulu. Furthermore, the National Executive Committee has directed that 2 more members of these PLCs must be appointed to ensure demographic representation within each province. The NEC has directed that the Western Cape nominees should be revised to ensure that it reflects the demographics of the Western Cape province. So that list has, of the Western Cape has since been submitted and approved. Then we get to the section that deals with ward candidate nomination and selection process. The National Executive Committee approved 6 key processes for the selection of ward candidates, and these shall commence in January of 2026 as follows. 1, the BGM to nominate 4 candidates. 2, the BC to present the 4 candidates to the community meetings. 3, the BGM to nominate a ward councillor. 4, screening of the nominees by the provincial list committee. 5, ratification by the extended provincial executive committee. And 6, approval by the extended national executive committee. And the next section deals with the selection of the mayoral, speaker, and chief whip candidates. 1, the executive mayors of all metropolitan municipalities and secondary cities shall be appointed exclusively by the national officials, taking into consideration the issue of gender representation at all levels. 2, all candidates to be considered for the positions of mayors, speakers, and chief whips must possess the following qualifications and experience: tertiary qualification from an accredited institution and at least 3 years experience either as an MP or MPL or councillor. 3, with regards to all local and district mayoral positions, the Regional Executive Committee shall recommend 3 candidates per municipality to the provincial officials from amongst the nominated councillor candidates. 4, no candidate who has served 2 consecutive full terms as a mayor may be considered for the 3rd term in line with the Municipal Structures Act. 5, at least 2 of the 3 mayoral candidates recommended by the Regional Executive Committee must be female. 6, current 1st-term female mayors on the councillor lists must automatically be included amongst the 3 mayoral candidates recommended by the REC, and concerted efforts to ensure that female mayors also serve 2 full terms. And so those concerted efforts should be made. 7, before the national and provincial officials decide on the final candidate, they must ensure that candidates are interviewed by duly appointed interview panels comprised of officials and National Executive Committee or PEC members. 8, if the officials are not satisfied that some of the candidates meet the criteria, they may add at least 2 more names to be considered through interviews. And 9, All candidates shall be subjected to the same interview process. 10, the chair of the Electoral Committee and/or his or her nominees, supported by the Secretary of the Electoral Committee, shall have an observer status during the interviews of the mayoral and speaker candidates. 11, the provincial officials shall appoint chief whips and speakers following recommendations of 3 candidates for each of these positions by the Regional Executive Committee. At least 2 of each of the recommended candidates must be female. Then appeals and objections, that's section 10. The following dispute resolution framework appeals and appeals procedure shall be applicable during the 2026 local government candidate selection process. So if the dispute arises during the BGM process and community meetings, the PDRC will be in charge of resolving that dispute, and if there's an appeal, the PLC shall deal with that. And the vetting and interviews, the provincial list committees would be in charge of that, and if a dispute arises, the electoral committee will have the final decision on that. The outcomes of the extended provincial executive committee meeting, if there's a dispute, the provincial list committee shall attend to that, and the final appeal decision shall be handed down by the electoral committee. Outcomes of the extended national executive committee, if there are disputes there, the electoral committee would be mandated to deal with resolving that dispute, and of course the final decision shall also come from the electoral committee. The selection of mayoral, speaker, and chief whip candidates, if disputes arises out of that, it's the electoral committee which will attend to those, and if there's further appeals, the National Working Committee shall process that. All disputes, objections, and appeals must be lodged with the relevant structure within 48 hours of the occurrence of the event or alleged transgressions. Tangible evidence to support the disputes, objections, and appeals must be furnished as matters that lack sufficient evidence shall not be entertained by the relevant structures. Comrades who lodge malicious disputes, objections, and appeals shall be subjected to internal disciplinary processes of the ANC. In the unfortunate event that the Provincial List Committee, the PDRC, and the extended PEC fails to complete the process, the Electoral Committee shall take over the process and present the final list to the extended National Executive Committee. That, colleagues, this is the statement which reflects the adopted rules and guidelines by the National Executive Committee. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Former President, for the statement in his capacity as the chair of the Electoral Committee. We will now be taking questions for the Electoral Committee. It is quite a lengthy statement. I do trust that the team has shared it with everyone, but as the chairperson said, it does detail the guidelines as well as the rules, as well as the procedures, and of course the time lines as well, insofar as the ANC's processes are concerned going into the 2026 local government elections. I am taking hands. Was the statement that clear? Yeah. Okay. All right. We'll start with Siam Tanda, and then we'll go at the back, and then we'll end with the SABC.
I'm going to start with the PLCs. The list of people you've just given us, could you please tell us how those people were chosen? And also, you mentioned that you have, and you're saying you're looking for a mix. We must reflect a mix of views, at least 30% or 10 comprised of the ages of 25 and 35. Just the rationale behind that. Are you not looking for younger people, 18-year-olds? Are you not interested in those in your list? And I think it's good for now.
Okay. There seems to be a problem with the mic. Can we agree what we're doing with the mic? Are we using it or are we not using it?
We can speak to the mic.
Okay.
Just that the
Is it okay? Is that messing up the sound? Okay, because we are audible. Yeah, okay, cool, sure.
All right. Good afternoon, Mulukumlo from ANC. Firstly, let me apologize to you, Mr. Former President and colleagues, and thanks very much, because we couldn't walk out of the President's event and the human beings out of respect. And we appreciate your patience. I have just a few questions. Many of the things that I had you outlining today, I'm not hearing them for the first time, I must admit. Maybe you can outline one or two key matters that you think are new here to help us in that regard. Secondly, has the ANC considered perhaps announcing mayoral candidates, particularly in metros and big cities, even before elections, considering that other political parties who are contesting major cities have done so? And if not, why not? And the other question is, when is the nomination at the branch level starting?
Okay. Thank you. There's a hand to the side from the SABC.
Thank you. Musi Opera from the SABC. Just two quick questions. You talked about demographic representation, and you mentioned the Western Cape specifically, and what has been done to resolve that. Just if you can just elaborate exactly how that case illustrates what it is that you are trying to do in terms of your process. That's the first one. And the second one would be the fact that you said that some of the board candidates should be prepared to submit themselves to lifestyle audits. Is this going to be mandatory? Is it going to be across the board? Is it going to be policy? Or is it going to be as and when there is a need? Because I'm just worried that we might be a little bit arbitrary in terms of who gets it done and who doesn't get it done.
Okay. Any other hands before we hand over? No? Have I put undue pressure on you to ask a question? Okay, sorry about that. It's okay. Chairperson, over to you. Oh, sorry, I didn't see you. Yes.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. Good afternoon. My name is Howard. I'm from the UNM. Just a clarity to say these people that have been brought in to manage this process in provinces like Kochi-Tamaraw, are they being brought in on the basis that they themselves have no interest of being candidates? And also a comment, Chairperson, I see the people that surround you in this very committee are still quite youthful themselves and they may want to run for something. Just clarity to say you yourselves, you are also not candidates, particularly at this time that we see stories being shared in the media that there's people who want veterans to come in and take over towards the end of this term or after it. the former president isn't available for any process in the office in the ANC, particularly the president. And finally, there's been a common thing with ANC electoral processes, because I remember in 2011 you had a process of checking after people complained to say the councillors we have is not the ones that we elected at the branch level. Because of the violence, where it would seem that rogue ones stand a better chance of gaining office. Is there a way of dealing with that to make sure that in fact what you get from a nomination process at the branch level is what the majority want, as opposed to having people rented from elsewhere to come and nominate?
Just some clarity. By these people in provincial level, are you referring to the PLCs?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Chairperson, or who will start? Okay. Okay.
Thank you very much for the questions. Sitanda, the parents who are part of the National Executive Committee presented a compelling argument that youth at the age of any age below 25 ought to be in institutions of learning rather than being rushed into public office as public representatives. So hence the minimum age was pegged at 25. Yeah. You asked the question about the PLC?
Yes, the rationale behind the names.
Yes. Okay. There's a clear criteria set out in the rules and guidelines that the criteria for selecting or nominating people to serve on the PLC ought to be that those people are not available for nomination to any positions. It ought to be people who have distinguished themselves serving in whatever capacity as professionals and even public representatives or members of executive committees. So that's the criteria. And yeah, so that also answers the question about Rogis Clamarago. They've been there, served and distinguished themselves. Hence the inclusion in the PLCs. The ANC has agreed, the NEC has agreed that it will announce its mayoral candidates for the metropolitan councils as well as the secondary cities. That is the major cities such as Rustenburg or Polokwane and so on. So those would be announced prior to the elections. Yeah. Nomination is meant to start early next year. By February, the nominations should commence in earnest. You say you've heard most of these issues raised in the statement before, and of course we are glad that you are traveling this journey with us. We as I said, the rules have been tightened and that the minimum qualification is now mandatory. Yeah, and also that the mayoral candidates for the metros and the secondary cities shall be handled by the national officials. This is to ensure that they select people who bring expertise and the requisite qualifications to occupy those positions. Comrade Busi, my apology, I'm calling you comrade. my apology. Yeah, the lifestyle audit, as the rules indicate, shall be initiated by the Electoral Committee as and when it's not mandatory to everyone, but as and when questions arise from the citizenry and or the media or whoever. And if there's a suggestion that there's a case of unexplained wealth, the Electoral Committee shall then order that a lifestyle audit should be conducted. Yes, all members of the PLCs as well as the Electoral Committee are not available for nomination to any position. In the past, we had 2 members who accepted nomination to serve in the NCOP as well as in the National Assembly, and they had to step down from the Electoral Committee. So if you accept nomination, then you can't be a member of the PLC and you can't be a member of the Electoral Committee. So the stories that you've heard either originate from the media or some people plant those kinds of stories, but we can assure you that no member of the Electoral Committee nor the PLCs are available to accept nomination for any other position. Yeah. Now, we've tightened up the rules to ensure that the nomination process is as democratic as is humanly possible, and that that's why this allowance for disputes and complaints, those shall be addressed, so that if there's manipulation of processes, the processes shall be reordered to follow the democratic procedures. Yeah. Yeah, I think that was the last question. The question with the Western Cape, Chief is going to deal with it. Yeah, because we have division of labor. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson of the Electoral Committee and our acting national spokesperson and members of the media. Maybe, Chairperson, if I can just add 1 or 2 things.
Yeah.
Ziamtanda, on the issue of the PLC appointments, they are primarily nominated by the PEC. then the Electoral Committee will then recommend the names to the National Executive Committee, which will then approve those names. And one of the changes, Muloko, is that initially in 2021, for instance, there was no requirement on qualifications and skills on PLC members. They were simply listed as names. This time around, the NEC requested that we analyze their competencies in terms of skills and qualifications, which is why you see a breakdown there. If you can look at the spread, it's a fundamental change altogether, because you can see we've got lots of people with academic background, with PhDs, master's degrees, former ministers, former MECs, former MPs, and MPLs. So I think that's one of the issues we need to look at in terms of what is new. Even the issue of the lifestyle audit was not as firmly expressed as now. You can see now we are seeing that we'll bring in reputable accounting and law firms to work with us if there's a need to deal with that. Also, the issue of the qualifications, in 2021, we said that all councillors must have a metric qualification. But there's now a distinction between general councillors and those who are going to be mayors, speakers, and chief whips. There, the fundamental change is that those must then have a tertiary qualification, which means a degree or a diploma or a national, something much more better than metric. And in terms of the skills, the rules do say that they must have 3 years experience as MPs or MPLs or councillors. So that would constitute what is fundamental changes in terms of the rules. And you recall there was this question of disputes and issues from the past. In 2021, there was a Mutlante report, they call it then at the NEC, which dealt with a lot of grievances across all the provinces. Following that, there was an investigative committee, which was comprised by the NEC, and it resolved all those disputes, most of them, and in cases where councillors were parachuted, like in the Northwest in particular, was where the problem was rife. Most of those councillors were replaced by the correct ones that were nominated by the community. So there are steps in place to deal with that issue. So I just thought maybe I should add one or two issues. Then the Western Cape, there was a list that was presented to the NEC regarding the Western Cape. The NEC did not accept it on the basis of lack of demographic representation. So we've recently got a list which is well balanced in terms of demographic representation. The chairperson is Judy Hermans, and there's Kathy Hendricks, Jane Sturman, Eliano Roberts, Eve Williams, Mampe Ramzamai, Lucanio Daweti, and Fazeka Mavusa. So if you just listen to the names, you will appreciate that problem of demographics has been addressed. And that's why the chairperson was saying that the list is now approved, because the only issue was just the demographics. The qualifications are there, and the skills base is there. Thank you, Mr. Spokesperson.
Thank you, Chief. I see there's another hand going up. Okay, there's 2 follow-ups. Anyone else? Because this will be the last round that we will be taking. Okay, we'll start with Muloko, and then you'll come to Sam. Oh, okay. Maybe let's start with you, because you haven't asked the question yet. He will introduce himself, please, and then just indicate which media house you're coming from.
Good day, Simon Majalibodi from IOL News. Can I please get a comment on reports that President Cyril Ramaphosa has reportedly told his critics in the ABC's NEC to stop discussing his removal behind closed doors, saying that they should do so directly and that he would be willing to step down as soon as possible? Can I please have a comment on that?
Okay, so we will be having a media briefing tomorrow with the SG of the ANC, where all matters related to the National Executive Committee meeting will be discussed. So we will please request that you defer that question for the SG for tomorrow's media briefing. And if we could please keep today's questions strictly for the Electoral Committee, which is a body that operates independently on all electoral matters related to the ANC and its electoral processes. Muloko.
Thank you so much, Muloko, again from ANC. If memory serves me well, there was a time when the ANC has instructed that all its councillors who happen to hold other jobs elsewhere must resign and leave time as councillors. And I do remember there was one councillor in the city of Polokwane who was daring the ANC essentially to fire him. And I just can't remember where that matter ended. Can you just clarify if that standing position is still in place? And some clarity as well in terms of the campaigns by the candidates, especially at the level of their communities and among their branch committees. Did you say that they are not permitted to utilize traditional or legacy media as well as social media? And I'm just asking this in the context of this time and age we are living in to say, how difficult is it that somebody is not going to say, consider being on social media when that is the easiest way to reach out to people? Last question, you are going into these elections for the, maybe not for the first time because there was an election of where the SACP contested you in Maludia, contested, we will not say contested you in Maludia. This time around they have made it clear that they are standing independent of the African National Congress, despite the fact that you are coalition partners. In your selection of candidates, is dual membership of both the ANC and the party going to be vacant?
Okay. Siamtanda, while we go to Siamtanda, just to note that the ANC has indicated that it is still very much in talks and dialogue with the SACP in relation to the ACCP's decision to contest elections, and the SG will give an update tomorrow in terms of how far that particular discussions are between the ANC and the SACP. Siamtanda?
Mr. Chairperson, you just confirmed that the ANC will in fact be deviating from its traditional selection processes for mayors in the metros. What is the thinking behind that? Is it because of the caliber of the candidates from other parties that you're competing with? Is the ANC realizing that it might not be able to just campaign based on the brand and the name? Please just explain that to us. And to go back to your statement, there's a part where you speak about frictionalism, and there are coming out of a lot of regional conferences in many parts of the country of the ANC. And many times we've seen a winning faction purge the losing faction, especially during the list period. How is the ANC going to navigate that and sort of, police, manage that people are not punished for being the losing state? Thank you.
Okay. Chairperson?
Chief, start with the
Chief, okay.
the difficult ones for yes.
So you had the last two will be elevated. Yes. No, on the issue of campaigning, Muloko, they are allowed to campaign on social media. The only issue is trying to deal with the issue of the use of money excessively in campaigns where people will buy T-shirts bearing the councillors or candidates' picture. And that's where we have a problem. Or hiring a PR company that's paid a lot of money to campaign, because otherwise money will become the deciding factor, or people can be influenced using too much money. I think yes, I think that's it. the rest is the SACP issue and the issue of the secondary. Which one is the other one?
The other one is dealing with appellants in cases where councillors will hold 2 jobs.
Oh, councillor will hold 2 jobs. I think the rule is that it's a full-time job to be a councillor, so you can't work anywhere else. So that is the rule. Yeah. Thank you.
The difficult ones.
Yeah.
Siamtanda, the decision on the metros, mayoral candidates for the metros and secondary cities is now to be handled by the national officials, because the normal practice of those who get elected as chairpersons of regional committees end up being the district mayors almost automatically like that. So here the consideration is that the mayoral candidates of the ANC must be people with the relevant expertise and qualifications. Hence, the selection is to be made by the national officials for that reason. Yeah. And with regards to slate politics, this is when a slate is put together ahead of the actual elections. That is to be discouraged, precisely because for some reason, even in spite of the fact that voting is by secret ballot, but and the slates are not normally like presented to the plenary, and people then select between one slate and the other. Voting is by secret ballot by each individual, and so once the results are out, and those who are elected take it upon themselves to mete out victor's justice to others, it's discouraged. It's a very wrong practice. It's a fundamentally wrong practice because, that way the organization can lose good, upright, well-qualified members simply because they are marginalized by slate politics. So slate politics are frowned upon the same way as factional politics are frowned upon. Yeah. Okay. Now, the South African Communist Party, as the Electoral Committee, we do have members who were forwarded by the South African Communist Party. Even at the level of the Electoral Committee, we do have a member of the SACP. And in a number of PLCs, there are members of the PLCs whose names were forwarded by the South African Communist Party. And so to understand the stance of the Communist Party, you must read the latest African Communist. In it, they explain their position. that they have a resolution to contest the elections independent of the African National Congress. Now, so implementing their conference resolution is step number one, okay? Step number two is how the implementation is going to happen and what consequences are likely to arise out of that. Step number two, which would necessarily lead to the question of dual membership. Okay? Now, they have sidestepped step number two. They have not dealt with step number two. And that is why in their explanation they say they will contest elections independent of the ANC, but they remain members of the alliance, tripartite alliance. Okay? And they say there's no contradiction in that. The fact that they are contesting elections independently and they remain members of the alliance. They say there's no contradiction in that. So I'm saying the step number two, which would have addressed the issue of dual membership and so on, they kind of jumped over that step. So that explains where we are. And as Comrade Nongaiba has explained, the ANC and the SACP are engaged in a palaver, if you like. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that must explain. But as I'm recommending, please do read the latest issue of the African Communist. Therein you will find all the explanations. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Comrade Chairperson, and to the Electoral Committee. That brings us to the end of our media briefing on the ANC's candidate selection processes, rules and guidelines for the 2026 local government elections. Please do note that the SG of the ANC will be doing the post-NEC media briefing tomorrow. We will issue the advisory on the exact time for that, and we do invite you to kindly join us again tomorrow. Thank you so much, and have a good afternoon further. Thank you.